Hey guys, it's Barrett with the Camping Camper. Today we're going to talk about the Colby Ultimate Valve Stems. We've had these stems on our camper for about 1.5 years. We are going to go over what we think about them after putting about 10,000 miles on them with the camper right after this. So why do you need Colby Ultimate Valve Stems on your camper? Well, I personally believe that an RV TPMS is a must for anyone that takes long trips with their camper. A lot of people say, I don't need to buy a TPMS because you can get a tire gauge for $2. Well, I'll tell you, after having a TPMS save your butt one single time, then you're a fan for life. I was on a trip home from Myrtle Beach and we were in North Georgia. We were about 20 miles from home when we started getting an alarm from our TPMS, our Tireminder. And it was about 8.5 hours into a 9-hour drive. Things were fine the whole time until I started getting a warning saying that there was a fast leak in one of the trailer tires. After pulling over, I noticed that there was a gash in the sidewall of the tire. If I wasn't made aware of this at the time, I'm sure that that tire would have lost enough air and blown out and caused a lot of damage. All this is to say that if you have a TPMS and find it necessary, there is a chance that the extra little bit of weight on that sensor on your rubber valve stem could theoretically cause so much centrifugal force that it could damage the valve stem. I actually had this happen. It didn't happen on my trailer, but it did happen on my truck. I actually had it happen 3 different times because the first couple I just thought, well, you know, it could just be a fluke. And after the 3rd time, I was like, no. I did like the Tireminder stems on my truck because it gave you the temperature as well as the tire pressure reading, even though I have a built-in TPMS. But there was no way for me to upgrade the truck TPMS to metal stems. I couldn't find anywhere that would retain the TPMS of the truck because I didn't want the alarm going off all the time. So the first time that we had a valve stem issue in my truck, we were actually on that trip to Myrtle Beach. It's the first time that we went anywhere. We woke up in the morning, we stayed at a Cabela's. We woke up in the morning and we had a low tire on the truck. So I started looking around and the stem, you could hear it hissing and leaking if you just move the stem just a little bit. So we went down to Costco, which was next door, dropped the trailer. They put a new valve stem on. Given the fact that this was the first time, we just went on doing the same thing. After having this happen a couple more times though, we decided it was time to take those sensors off the truck because there was apparently no TPMS packs, like I say, that have a metal valve stem built in for the RAM that I have that I could find. I will say that I never once had a valve stem, the rubber stem on my trailer leak. However, I was kind of nervous about this, so I did order some metal stems. But when I got to 3 different tire shops, I did the first opinion and second opinion and third opinion, I was told that those metal stems wouldn't work with my trailer. I was also told that with the profile of the wheel on my Cougar, that they didn't know of any metal stems that would work. So I kind of gave up on that for a little while. I was having a conversation with my contact down at Tireminder. They suggested trying these Colby Ultimate Stems. After I watched a few product reviews on them, I decided just to give them a shot. They were easy to install because you don't even have to take the tire off of the wheel in order to put them on. You don't even have to jack the wheel up off the ground. All you got to do is grab the rubber valve stem with a pair of pliers. I'd use a washcloth or some padding behind there, but you just take a pair of pliers, just twist that rubber valve stem off, and it just lets all the air out of the tire. Now, I'll say that the first time I did this, some of the videos I watched, they try to shove it back in there before all the air gets out of the tire. I messed one up, it didn't seat well, and so because of that, from now on, I just learned just to let all the air out of the tire, fix the stem, and then air the tire back up. So when you put the stem in, you want to push it down really good inside the wheel there. Now, after I talked to Colby Valve, what they actually recommend is a 7/16 inch socket on a nut driver. You know, those things that look like a screwdriver, but they have a socket head on them. The one that I got was from Harbor Freight. I put a link to it down in the description here, but it's got a 1/4 inch socket head on it. And you put a 7/16 inch socket on there, and that way you can tighten it up a little bit. Now, the biggest thing with them is they say that, you know, it's ingrained in your head whenever you're tightening a nut up that you want it really tight. These you don't want very tight at all. and that's one reason that they recommend doing that. It's one of the biggest issues that they have are people over tightening them apparently, and so with this system where you're using more of a screwdriver handle, you can feel that tension a little bit better and you're less likely to over tighten it. Now as you tighten that nut, it does cause a rubber seal to spread over a cone that's at the base of that ultimate valve, and what that does is it expands, and that way it seals the hole in the wheel. Now there are a couple of nuances to the installation. Number one, be sure to insert that stem all the way into the hole. Number two, be sure not to over tighten the nut. Now I spoke with David down at Colby Valve, and he stated that there isn't a way to tell a specific PSI that the nut needs to be torqued to because of all the different shapes of the wheels and such like that. It is important to remember that it doesn't take much, and it's usually between 10 and 15 PSI. In my video of the camper, I actually think that I over tightened the nuts because, you know, they were pretty squished out, but it hadn't leaked in the last 1.5 years, so I'm pretty comfortable with them now. Now, what are some benefits of using these stems? The main benefit is that you have a valve that is a lot more sturdy than the rubber valve stem. Colby Valve actually states that these stems have been pressure tested in a lab up to 3,000 PSI. 3,000 PSI. Now we're usually going about 80 to 100. They tested them at 3,000. So I'm pretty comfortable with this. These are easy to put in, like I've already explained. You don't have to take the wheel off. You don't even have to jack the car up. What are some negative comments people say about these valves? Well, number one, they say they're expensive, which they are a little bit expensive. But, and the price went up the last couple of years, I've noticed, but I'll say that they're a lot stronger than the traditional stems, and when you consider that you don't have to pay someone to remove all the tires, change the stems out to a metal stem, and then mount the tires back on, then, you know, it's rather economical. The second thing that people say is that base of that rubber plug actually stays in the tire, and this could possibly cause an issue. So I asked David down at Colby Valve about this specifically, as I knew he had heard this question in the past, and he stated that with the rubber stem there's no worry. Essentially the only thing left in the tire is only a few grams of rubber. He actually brought up a product that I'd never heard of before until I looked and verified, but apparently some people are actually putting beads in their tires for balancing. And that's a little strange, but I looked it up. It's a thing. A quick Google search just, shows apparently balancing beads, they're true. Who knew? I didn't. He did say that if the valve was metal, or if you had an internal TPMS sensor that came loose and flopped around in the wheel, that he didn't think it would cause any harm. He actually had this happen to him before, but he said that it would be loud and it'd be a nuisance until you had it removed out of the tire. All in all, I'm very happy with these valve stems. I decided to place the Tireminder i10 unit that I'm reviewing in the Cobalt, but I wanted something to protect myself from this valve stem issues that I've had in the past with the truck. The installation into the car was very easy, but I did have to get a screwdriver to push the base of that stem into the frame of the tire. And I did notice a few packs of the Colby Ultimate Stems that I'd ordered now. They do come with extra seals in the package. That way if you mess something up, you can just take that other seal off and you can get a redo. Now they told me in order to do that, if you have one that's leaking or something, you want to leave that nut on there. You want to back it off, most of the way, and then you want to grab that nut with a pair of pliers and wiggle it around, and eventually that thing will come loose. But you don't want to grab the threads for the tire valve with a pair of pliers and mess those threads up. So we'll continue to let you know how these valve stems do over the coming years. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, follow our adventures in the future, and just have a great time out there and enjoy yourself.
Do not forget to hit that subscribe button.